session about report writing. This session is going to be half an hour with the general theory about writing, how to write a full report and what is a report. And then after that, Amy is going to continue on presenting some very useful tips to format a report and to, even with APA, you can do some little things. So yes, I hope you enjoy it. Please feel free to ask any questions anytime. And please have in mind all throughout this session, especially the first part, that the report writing presentation we are going to work out here today is very general. So keep in mind always to go back to your marking criteria and do the necessary adaptations. You have some handouts that we can give to online students if they email us. And those handouts is basically a sample, an example of a report. But again, it's a very generic example. So some of the areas and sections you might not have for your incoming, for your future reports. So just use that as a guideline. So, do you all know, sorry, this is not, do you all know what is a report? So how many academic styles of writing do you know? There are several academic styles of writing. So when you are upper level 4, level 5, level 6, and so on in your studies, you have different styles of academic writing. And last week we had a session of what is academic writing. One of the styles we talked about was reports. So you can be invited to write an assessment that has got the format of an essay, or a literature review, or reflective writing, or report writing. The good thing about report writing, it's very common in business studies, and for some people it's the easiest style of writing, because it's got lots of guidelines. So if students understand each part, each section of the report, they will be okay as long as they follow specific templates. So report is a style of academic writing where you basically document an inquiry, a question, or a specific investigation. As the name says, report is to report information to someone and some information regarding some specific research you have done about a specific topic. So a report may be about an event, an organization, a situation, or a specific issue. So basically you're collecting information on something, and then you're reporting that information in a specific format to someone. What we're going to learn here today is the format plus the way you report their information. Okay. So it is very important when you're writing a report that you are familiar, that you know your purpose. So it is totally different. Imagine that you are scientists in a lab and you're discovering the cure for cancer. It will be lovely. And as a scientist, you have a specific way of writing a scientific report. You have to obey specific stages to write that same report. As business students, usually follow the business report format, which is the one we're going to follow here. And for that, it's really important to know your audience. Who are you writing the report for? So it's different if you are writing it for scientists or for business analysts or accountants. What type of information? Why do they want to report for? What is the purpose of their report? How much information do they want? Also, what will they get out from that report? And what problems do they need to be solved at the end of their reports? So usually these questions, you have the answers for it in your assessment description, where a specific scenario is given to you. Imagine that you're participating in a conference, let's say, and you're working in the travel and tourism industry, and you have to present a report on the future of the tourism industry in New Zealand. That will be an interesting report for this area. So when you are reading your marking criteria, make sure you understand what's the purpose and who is the audience of the report. Any questions so far? So this is the big picture of reports. So, usually when you write an essay, you have 3 big stages. which is the introduction, then you have the body, and then you have the conclusion of the essay. And we talked about essay writing last session. Here today, we have to also follow three main stages. The main stage, which is introduction and methodology of report writing. The biggest part of report writing, which is presenting the findings and generating some discussion towards the findings. And then finally, you draft your conclusions and your recommendations when you're writing the reports. Let's say, which do you think is the biggest part of your report? Like 80% of your reports. The red, the green, or the purple? The green. So next time I'll do this slide, maybe we'll change and put it the green a bit bigger, because findings is exactly what you discover. So if you are doing a research on travel and tourism industry in New Zealand, or let's say you are doing a research about travel and tourism industry here in the Bay of Plenty region, you will present, let's say you discovered 5 important findings for the future of tourism industry here, and they will be the ones that you will present in the body of your reports. Okay? Moving on, it's very important that you are familiar with the tone of writing. So when you're writing generally in academic writing, you avoid jargon and you avoid cliches. You also have to write in a very formal and clear way using plain English. So avoid waffle when you're writing reports, please do. It's very old school, especially in business studies. Tutors don't like it at all. And again, it's the golden rule for good report writing methodology is always keep to the facts and just present the facts in a very clear, short sentences and paragraphs. Also use the past tense. The tense that we use when we're writing a report, because we're reporting to something that we discovered in the past, like past 2 weeks or past months, it depends on the duration of your research. Apart from the recommendation sections, always use the past tense. And then we're going to talk about which tense is the best one for you to do when you are writing recommendations. Another question that is very common is, can I use the first person when I'm writing a report? I believe, I found. What do you think? No, it's not recommendable at all. So avoid the use of the first person. You can replace this, I discovered the following facts. You can avoid I discovered the following facts, and you can say the following facts were discovered while doing this research. Even when you're doing recommendations, which is the hardest bit, not to use the first person, instead of saying I recommend that, you can say it is recommendable that. So it's just an idea, it's just some examples of how you can replace this into a more formal language. The format of the report, and this is why it's so good to have Amy here. It is very important, and you will see that in your marking criteria, that the tutors are going to mark you for the presentation and the structure of the report. A report itself needs to be structured. So you can use headings, some headings, and Amy is going to tell you how to do that using Microsoft Word. And please use numbering, bullet points, tables, diagrams, anything that helps you to putting some relevance into your points when you're explaining or discussing your findings. Feel free to use all of this. Even tables and photographs. Make sure that you do the proper APA referencing. We're going to have a session about that next week. And don't forget to do your in-text referencing while you're writing the report and using all this material. Again, if you are doing a presentation about the research results of your own survey, you don't need to APA reference because it's your own research. Some more questions? I'm going through this slide a bit, faster because I know it can be a bit lot of information, and I really would like to give some time to Amy. But please feel free to ask any questions. This is the proper forum to discuss any questions you have. Just start, if you have your assessment description over there, just have a ask me, how can we do this for this specific assessment? Or if you prefer to have a little session at the end, I will be available for that as well. Moving on. So this is the sections that your report may include, and this is where it gets really important to have a look at your marking guide. And this is what it means, each one of these sections. So generally, in theory, an academic report has the duty task for a cover page, and Amy is going to teach you how to insert a cover page in a Word document, a beautiful business professional cover page. The acknowledgement. What is an acknowledgement? Acknowledgement is where you recognize the people that provide you special assistance. So if part of your research methods is to interview somebody, you may want to acknowledge your interviewees when you start writing your report. Again, in this handout that you have in front of you, can I just use that? You don't mind? So what I have here is an example of how to write a cover page. So each section that I'm going to talk about in this slide, you will find it here. So please feel free to use this while we go through these sections. And then you have the acknowledgements here. This is, again, you use this very careful. This is an example. Just don't copy paste what is here. Just this to give you an idea of what acknowledgements are and how you could use these acknowledgements. And they are in the exact position of the sample, exactly the same order that you have to put them when you're writing your own report. This is a very good template that students really, really appreciate. Then you have the table of contents. Amy is going to help you with that as well. How to have a beautiful, professional, and effective and certain table of contents. A list of figures, so if you're using tables or diagrams or pictures that are not yours, you should reference them, but also list them in the table of contents. The terms of reference, I'm going to cover that, all of these other topics in detail. What so-called the executive summary or abstract, how to write an executive summary, how to write a good introduction, and what is the difference between executive summary and introduction. That's one of the hardest parts of a report. And also the methodology or the procedures you used for your research. If it was primary research, if it was secondary research, we're going to cover that as well. And again, you have an example of that in the handout. Results or findings, the biggest part of your report. You know, the 80%, usually the 80% of your report. The discussion, conclusions, recommendations, and references. What I can tell you so far is that all the reports, all of them have the following elements. All of them have a cover page, all of them have a table of contents, executive summary, introduction, findings, conclusions, recommendations, references, and appendices. So some appendices, some of them can have or not. But discussion, terms of reference, list of figures, it all depends on what your tutor wants you to do. It all depends of your research as well. So you can find, this is not a list that you have to follow blindly, but it's just a general structure of an academic report as a guideline. Any questions about this specific sections?
Are you going to give us a copy of these slides?
Yes, I can give you a copy of this to your email. We can send you a PDF of these slides to your email. Also, if you need other handouts, we have different ones in the library. That explains all of this, and you can take it home. If you're not a paper person, you have this information in our Koawi online. In your Moodle page, for all the students, face-to-face students and online students, there is a section that usually says, do you need help with your studies, or Koawi online, and you will find this information there, how to write a good report. Just write it out here. Koawi. So you'll find information. And again, Cheryl and I or Amy will be always available to help you with anything you need. Okay, what's the big picture of a report? We know already that How do you start building a house? Do you build a house by building the roof? We're not builders. I'm not into trades, but we will not do that. Because meaning saying this is that the roof will fall apart if we don't have the right foundations. So the recommendation here, this is a strong tip for you, for your future assessments and your future reports. Always start writing your reports by writing your findings. Forget about the introduction. Forget about the executive summary. I will explain you shortly why you should never start writing a report by the executive summary or introduction. It is not easy, so make your life easier. First step is writing about the findings. And then the second step, what do you think it is? Conclusions. Yes. So our second step is to write about the conclusion. And then finally, the recommendations. And then we really advise you then to write introduction or terms of reference, then the executive summary, always at the end, and then the parts that you will see in this slide in green are the IT tips that Amy is going to help you with. It's not writing itself. So all the purple ones are sections that you really have to develop academic writing, and the other ones are the IT tips for report writing. So then you write a cover page, and then the contents page, and then you could have appendices and references. So this is how a report looks like. So this is a visual picture, a big picture of a report. And saying this, I'm quite sure that you will have, apart from the appendices, all of these topics into your assessment description. Can you just turn off the light, Amy? Because I can see that the PowerPoint doesn't show.
Which one?
Oh, they are all maybe those ones? Yes, thank you. I can see that we cannot see the PowerPoint. Yes, a bit better. Thanks.
Sure.
Yes, if we could do that. Don't fall asleep. Good. Good. Yeah, that's fine. Yes. So, any questions so far? Is it getting clear what you have to do? Is it matching the assessment description of your future assessments? Yes? So if you have any questions, even if you don't have them now, just like you to have a first big picture, big idea of the report writing and the structure, and then we could sit down with you and just clarifying some specific areas. Let's continue on developing each part in detail. So when you have to write terms of reference, you have an example of terms of reference in that handout. And what do you have to put there? Brief describe the purpose of your report. Who is it written for? The date it was requested, the date that is due. So if I was about to start writing, the present report was developed in order to analyze the future of the travel and tourism industry in 2027 in the region of Bay of Plenty, New Zealand. Move on. That's it. Then, it's being written for the Conference of Travel and Tourism Bay of Plenty. It was requested on blah 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 2017, and it's due on blah 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 2016 and 20. 2 years to write the report. It's not bad. 3 years. Doesn't be bad. When you have to write the executive summary, students really struggle with this part, which is perfectly normal. But just follow these topics. You will be fine. If you have all these topics in the executive summary, you'll be fine. Sometimes tutors call this section abstract, and they have other names for all of this, but this is what you should have in the executive summary. So, again, describe the purpose of the report. Also, the scope of the investigation of the research. For this report, we had 2 years to develop our investigation. For this present report, we developed an interview just in the area of Tauranga. So the limit implications of your research, the scope of your research, the methods of investigation. For the specific report, we only use secondary investigation by analyzing websites, books, and articles. Ta-da. Or we actually develop an interview with the managers of the company, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, the main findings were that, so if you discover that you have 4 main findings, you just describe them. Don't analyze them here, but just say what were the main findings. So if I'm doing a report on how to cook the best tomato pasta in the world, I think I'm hungry, lunchtime, or an example, I can do some research, and then I discover that the best tomato pasta has got the best homemade pasta, the best mozzarella cheese, and the best organic tomatoes. So I have 3 findings. I'm not going to talk about the pasta, the quality of the tomatoes or the cheese here, but I'm going to say that these 3 were the main ingredients of my research for this recipe. Clear? Well, let's continue on using the tomato pasta example. What's the difference between introduction and executive summary? And that's really hard sometimes, because we are all used to write an introduction in a specific formula. For the report, you need to cover this. Some tutors call it the background, like you have there, background and scope. Follow this. Again, identify the purpose of the report, the scope of the report, and you have this before in your executive summary. But here you come up with theories, concepts, and ideas that you are developing. So if I am working with a SWOT analysis, a SWOT itself, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, is a concept. So I need to explain that in my introduction. For the specific report, I developed, it was developed a SWOT analysis to the organization of blah, blah, blah. Okay? Good. And then also try to define the relevant terms, the relevant concepts that you are working with. So if you are doing a report on future perspectives on tourism industry, what is the perspective of tourism industry? If you're writing a legal report, you have to, about consideration, you should define here in the introduction what consideration is. And try to make it really short and simple. Again, follow the example of how to write a good introduction in that specific handout. Some more details about the introduction. It describes the topic, why this topic is being investigated, why is the topic of interest, you can put it there as well, and how you developed your research and your investigation. Moving to another stage, the methodologies. Some tutors don't ask you to indicate the methodologies, to identify the methodologies you used for your research, but personally it's quite interesting for the tutor to understand, all right, so yes, I have a reference list at the end of this report so I can see how many websites, books, articles, and magazines the student used to write this report, but also he's letting me know, he's telling me about that in a specific 2 or 3 paragraph, a 2 or 3 sentence paragraph, that you are identifying not just the primary sources, talking about observation, personal interviews, if you use the survey, a questionnaire, but also the secondary ones, websites, books, articles, magazines, and so on. And now we get into the main part of our report, which is the findings. We also have in the handout an example of how to write the findings. That example has got a little introduction for all the findings. So if we have here, now we get into the real stuff, isn't it? The 80% of our report, the body. So let's say we are doing research on the best tomato pasta recipe in the world. By the way, it's Portuguese, just kidding. Just trying to get you away. But let's say, so tomato pasta, I discovered things. I'm writing the findings. Okay, so I have 1. I discovered that to do this recipe I need pasta. The second I need tomato. And third than need cheese, wasn't it? Yeah. Good. So, when you're working with Eamon, findings will be your point number one. Because you're not going to give a title or heading or numbering the introduction or the executive summary. You're going to do that only in the findings. So, and then the conclusions is coming after. Oh my God. And is my point number two. And then after the conclusions I have what? The recommendations. So I'm doing research and I discover, using my graphs, my diagrams, my tables, I discovered that, let's say, there are 3 ways of using pasta. So my conclusions is that pasta can be from the supermarket, homemade, or gluten-free pasta. So these are my findings. Actually, give me a second. These are my 3 findings. So it was supermarket, homemade, gluten-free, right? And this was tomatoes. And this was cheese. Sorry to change the recipe last week. So, when I'm writing my findings, this is my point 1. This will be my point 1, point 1. This could be my point 1, point 1, point 1, point 1, point 1, point 2, 1, 1, 3. Is it making sense? So this is very clear when you see the structure of your report that Emily is going to help you with. That makes it really easy to read and really easy to mark. That's what your tutor is going to look for. And this will be your 1.1, point 2, and this will be your 1.3. Saying this is related with this when you're writing a report. So when I go to the conclusions, discussion. I didn't include discussion here in this table because some tutors ask the discussion to be made in the findings or in the conclusions. Others say findings, discussion, conclusions, recommendations. So pay attention to your marking description, to assessment description and instructions, and try to see where the tutor wants the discussion to be generated. Because discussion is analysis. So you need to analyze your findings. You need to analyze the past. Basically, this is a bit of discussion. So the pasta that people use is could be 3 different styles of pasta. And then you go to the conclusions. Okay, so basically in the conclusions, you're going to summarize what you discovered. And then by practicing the recipe at home, you practice 3 different nights. Friday night, I'm going to cook pasta. And you did it every 4 months. And from your practice in your survey and your experience and whatever, you come to the conclusion that the best pasta is this one. So the best pasta is homemade pasta. And the best tomatoes, after all of your research, are organic tomatoes. And you come to the conclusion that the best cheese is mozzarella. Okay? Mozzarella cheese, right? So you have 3 conclusions after all these options that you've discovered while you're doing your research. So the first conclusion will be 2.1, the second 2.2, and this will be 2.3. Because it's matching all of this. And again, the same with the recommendations. Now move on to Amy for you to see how this will look like. And then we have, okay, so if I'm writing a book, or a report in this case, will be a report, to my supervisors in my cookery class about the specific report on how to make the best pasta in the world, I will recommend what? It is recommendable to use homemade pasta. So my recommendation will be homemade pasta, and that will be my 3.1. It is recommendable to use organic tomatoes, and it's recommended to use mozzarella my 3 recommendations, because the recommendations come from the discussion in the findings. Okay, it's all linked in together. That's why our students, especially you guys, business students, love writing reports, because sometimes when you have to write about immigrants or refugees in New Zealand and you have an essay structure and you don't know how to start a good introduction or a good body, there are strategies for it. But if you follow this and you first create the headings and subheadings, then you know what to write. Because you have like a mind map, you have like a nav map for your writing. And I will finish by talking about the reference list, APA. Leave it to the end. But please make sure while you're writing, when you're doing research, you found this amazing website about tomato pasta, and you are reading it, so you know, oh, I have to catch the bus to go home, right? And then you just, I guess this website has got all the information I need. And then you come back tomorrow to the Polytechnic and you discover, I don't know, I don't remember where I found that information. Which website? So copy paste the URL into your Word document and put it down at the end. Maybe do the same with books and with magazines, articles. Just make a note of the author of the book and the title of the book or article you're reading. So that will make your life easier when it comes to APA referencing at the end. If you are interested in this, come next week or book an appointment with us. We can help you with APA. This is really important for academic writing as well. Appendices at the end. You can have it or not, depends on your type of work, your instructions, assessment instructions, or also depends on your research. So when I am writing a report, if I am writing about the travel and tourism industry in New Zealand, and I discovered my first finding is that the future of the travel industry in New Zealand is going to be adventure tourism, and I find this beautiful flyer in downtown the Mount or in Rotorua about adventure tourism. I just staple it at the end. I identify it, annex or appendix number 1, and I talked about that while I'm writing, and I just staple it at the end when I am about to submit my report. And more information, again, I call our line on your Moodle. We can, of course, talk to us, but also talk to your tutor if you have any questions. And do you have any questions? It's a bit fast, but did you get the big picture of what a report is? And how should you link findings with conclusions and recommendations together? Amy's going to show you some really nice tips for IT. I'm just going to pause this one.